here in New York City, and I don't think that's just how it's always been, but in housing court, you have a right to counsel, right? How long has that been in place?
The right to counsel, from what I understand, was a coalition that formed around 2017, 18, and I believe in 2018 they passed the right to counsel bill here in New York City.
Oh wow!
Yep.
So what was it before that?
It was, there were agencies and they would get, referrals. Like my agency was around for, prior to that time. And, since it was elderly clients that we were mostly dealing with, we got a lot of our cases through the Assigned Counsel Project. Okay. So anybody who was in housing court who was over 60 years old could get referred to us. And we would take cases on, kind of need basis. But, there just weren't enough attorneys to take all these cases. And, we really did see a lot of tenants go through the housing court process without attorneys and just get, swept away.
What's so funny is I got evicted when I was in law school, actually, because I was dumb enough to get an apartment in Manhattan. But I didn't with the money, because they give you money to live. Yeah. What's it called? It's like cost of living loan. You get a cost of living loan. So I was living in Manhattan, and then what happened was I got a cost of living loan, and they give you a certain amount of money, but they said, hey, if your rent is more than what we give you, you can just apply for an increase. So I'm like, oh, okay. So my rent was like $300 more than how the math shaked out. Then when I went to go apply for the increase, it turns out they was only giving me that amount of money for 10 months at a time. So they didn't increase it 12 months times 300. They only increased it. So I was and then plus I was down a couple $1,000. So I ended up getting evicted before our first 1 hour summer job. And that was it. But I went to housing court, and then I literally just went into the front of the judge and said, I can pay it. And he was like, okay, get out of here. They just gave me a schedule.
Yeah.
But now everyone gets an attorney. How does that work?
Well, not everyone gets an attorney. It's not a fully funded program. So at my job, we have 1 day a month where we're on intake.
Okay.
And that means that's a day where our attorneys show up and we take 3 or 4 new clients, and those are our 4 clients for the month. But we also have another day where we're on intake, and that day we do advice only, which means that person meets with a lawyer and just talks with them for an hour, and that's the end of it.
Okay.
Because we don't have enough attorneys and we don't have enough money to take on everyone who needs a eviction defense lawyer in Queens.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do that as well.
Yeah.
So I guess the first time someone appears in housing court nowadays, will they have an attorney or will they get assigned an attorney at a later point?
So that all really depends, and it seems like a lot of the legal service organizations have their own setup in terms of how they go into it. However, just broadly speaking about the right to counsel program specifically, the people who qualify, it depends on your household size and your income. Okay. And it's for people who are at the federal poverty guideline, right?
Yeah, so that's really low.
And we know that needs to be updated, and it's classist and it's racist, and that's a conversation for maybe down the line. But specifically, the program is meant for indigent folks. It's not per se like the right to counsel for a criminal defense attorney, where right across the board, if you can't afford a lawyer, you'll get one. Constitutionally, this is actually just a city ordinance that gives you the right to access an attorney, and it's called the Universal Access Counsel program, UAC. Okay. So you're not guaranteed an attorney. The way it's set up is legal service organizations come in, they schedule days with the court to come in and conduct intake, and on those days we speak to clients, we provide advice on the spot, and depending on whether or not they qualify, we decide to take them up for counsel.
And what is the quality? Because I know sometimes when I get in, as the audience hopefully knows, I'm a public defender, criminal. Yeah. And sometimes I'll get in front of a judge and typically it just only occurs when they make a large bail, right? I had a client the other day made $50,000 bail, and the judge wants to be like, "Oh, does he qualify?" and they'll ask me if I looked into it. But it's like, it's not being pressed on every case. And it really, to me, it seems like if you don't do something that obviously make it seem like you make a lot of money, such as pay like a hard bail, no one's really gonna press the issue. Do they press it? Like, what's the standard in terms of pressing whether you qualify or don't qualify? Like, what's the metric?
So I imagine you guys experience this too, but Human Resources Administration, HRA, are the ones who decide that. So before they even come to us, HRA does an intake to see if they qualify or not, and then ultimately they come to us. Now, we provide counsel on the fly whether or not they qualify, but full representation is explicitly reserved for people who financially qualify, and HRA signals to us whether they qualify or not.
Yeah,
now, to the extent HRA is discerning this in any meaningful way, I don't know. That's not my prerogative.
Yeah, and there's the added issue of, you have, decent amount of people who qualify for the services, based on their income or, household composition, but there's not enough attorneys to handle all the cases. So, we unfortunately have to turn down people who do qualify, and we have to, pick and choose based on, impact and,
So what would be like
factors.
the best? Let's say I'm someone recently get an eviction notice, or just some other issue. Because I know it's not just evictions, and we're going to discuss that next. What would be like the best strategy to ensure an attorney? Is there like a certain day to show up? Is there like a one thing as compared to the other that would be more strategically advantageous?
I think it's fact specific. At least for our agency, we like to preserve, rent stabilized and rent controlled tenancies. We like to preserve long-term tenancies. And, unfortunately, there's a lot of cases that come into housing court in general that you're not able to keep that person in their home. So those are unfortunately lower priorities. So, the cases where we really can save somebody's home, those are the ones that we're going to prioritize.
Yeah, it's really a luck of a draw. I'm not the individual deciding this. My organization is, ultimately speaking, but I would like to highlight the fact that, as you mentioned, that there's not enough attorneys. I would like to flip it, is that they're doing too many evictions, right? And this is also an issue that the state has failed from a policy standpoint. The city has failed from a policy standpoint. We're living in a quasi post-pandemic world, right?
Yeah.
Where we haven't necessarily transitioned out of this pandemic. And it seems like the courts are operating as if that never happened, right? The city and the state is operating as though that had never happened. So we have so many people, right, who are without income, right, who are elders, who lost their jobs during the pandemic, who now can't get a job, might be undocumented and can't get a new job, and now they're just left behind in so many different ways. So I think it's important to highlight the fact that, yes, there's not enough attorneys, but why isn't there enough attorneys? Why? Is because the city and the state has failed on a policy level, right, to make sure that people are housed after a pandemic. They tried the emergency rental assistance program, they tried the eviction moratorium, but all those things are now.
Yeah, and now the good cause thing, it's not enough.